Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm going to start today's video off with a quote that was actually by a spokesperson for the government, and they explained that, quote, the increase in child poverty in working families was widely anticipated and could have been avoided, end quote. They also added that, quote, employment is at a record high, wages are outstripping inflation, and income inequality and absolute poverty are lower than in 2010, but we know some families need more support, which is why we continue to spend £95 billion a year on working age benefits, end quote. Unfortunately, almost 3 million children are living in poverty despite parents working and, as mentioned, employment rates being at an all-time high. So why is this exactly? 70% of all poorer children were in working families in 2018, which was higher than 2017 when the percentage stood at 67%. A massive 53% of poorer children are aged under 5 years old. And statistics made public by the Department for Work and Pensions show that the high cost of housing in the UK is pushing more and more families over the poverty line. However, I think that there's much more to this than what first meets the eye. For example, employment is higher than what it has previously been. But we need to bear in mind that zero-hour contracts are currently still a thing here in the UK. And with zero-hour contracts comes a lot of uncertainty over wage and working in general. Although this style of work is good for specific people with certain needs and wants, the majority of people who take zero-hour contracts take them simply because they have to. Many people do what they need to do in order to provide for their families. The problem with zero-hour contracts is, for those who are unsure, that the employer is not obligated to actually provide a minimum amount of working hours for who they employ. And although the employee does not have to take up the work that a company does offer them, this still leaves many unsure of their income. Going back to the rise in rent or mortgage costs, the National Housing Federation say that 193,000 more children, when comparing it to 2010's figures, are living in poor circumstances because of rent or mortgage costs. There is no affordability really for home ownership. Kate Henderson, who was the NHS chief executive, explained that, quote, year after year, thousands more hard-working families are falling into poverty, forced to choose between feeding and clothing their children or providing a roof over their heads, end quote. In April of 2018, an article was released that showed just how bad the situation was becoming, as it showcased that many kids living in poverty were pale, hungry, are generally not well kept, and were filling their pockets with food from school canteens. A head teacher named Lynn showed her concern for the pupils, saying, quote, children are filling their pockets with food. In some establishments that would be called stealing. We call it survival, end quote. Another head teacher said that, quote, Monday morning is the worst. There are a number of families that we target that we know are going to be coming into school hungry, end quote. Schools are trying to do things to prevent this issue, like having food banks, giving out clean uniforms to those in need, and providing summer schools, which in some cases are actually run by staff members voluntarily with no pay. One staff member whose role it is to provide counselling and family support at his school explained that, quote, many schools in our area closed because of the snow. I kept ours open because I was really worried about the children, that they weren't going to have a hot meal to eat that day, end quote. More than ever, school teachers are stepping in and being almost like second families to pupils. There's no doubt that something clearly cannot be right if many parents are working 2 or even 3 jobs to try to keep their family afloat and are unable to get any help through our benefits system. Currently, I believe the system is failing so many people. Lynn, the head teacher from earlier, also added that, quote, they have less money than those on benefits, end quote. Which, how that is okay is completely beyond me. Those working 2 or 3 jobs simply cannot compete with those on benefits. In what reality is that right? So what do you think on this very interesting topic? Please let me know in the comments section down below. It actually baffles me completely why so many families are struggling with the necessities in life but are not entitled to any help. It is incredibly shocking how it's affecting the children and their lives, to the point where school staff members are having to set up summer schools, doing voluntary work in order to support these children and their families, even going as far as to wash their school uniforms for them whilst they are doing physical education, just to make sure they are getting what they need, the basics in life. Thank you so much for listening to this video. If you enjoyed it or you learned something, please make sure to leave a like. If you are new here, please click on that subscribe button, and I hope to see you in my next video.